All right, today's video is on reading strategies. This is for Miss Oyola's grade 8 communication arts class, or anyone else who happens to be watching. So why should you care? So the question is, what is your brain really doing while you're reading? Do you ever find yourself floating off into daydream land or space while you're reading? Are you cognitively engaged in the content you are reading? Reading strategies can help. Basically, what this is saying is your brain needs to be doing certain things as you're reading in order to enhance your understanding and to help you build the best meaning possible. If you read a couple pages and you can't really talk about what you've read, or you haven't thought about it, or you find yourself just kind of drifting off, reading strategies can be the first step to helping you get your brain back in the game. So what are the reading strategies? We'll just go ahead and start by listing them out. Now, there are other teachers who will teach different reading strategies. Some will teach more, some will teach less. I've been doing reading strategies for a while, and for me, these are the most clear. They're the most, I think, they don't repeat themselves, right? So they're not very repetitive. Each one is its own specific behavior, and I think that they're the most comprehensive. So it provides enough without being too much. So if you have another teacher who gives you other reading strategies, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong or that teacher's wrong. We all kind of approach this a little differently. But for me, these are the ones that I continue to use as an adult reader, and I think help students the most. The first text feature is preview. So when you analyze basic text features and predict the content of a text. Visualize, see narrative texts as a movie in your mind. Infer, make educated guesses about things left unsaid by the author. Conclude, pull together multiple inferences to come up with final thoughts. And summarize, wrap everything up after you read. And we'll go through each one in a second. So what is previewing a text? Well, this happens before you actually start to read a book. It's usually the first thing that you do when you pick a book up off the shelf or a teacher gives you a text. When you're previewing a narrative text, you should look at the text features. These include chapter titles, illustrations, the back of the book, and the front cover. Don't read an entire chapter. That's not previewing. Previewing is supposed to be a quick glance. You should be able to do it in less than 3 minutes if you're doing it right. After previewing, though, you should be able to make an informed prediction using all the information you've gathered, which should include character names, setting, and the main conflict. The back of the book or the front cover flap will usually have most of that information. So you take everything that you've learned, and then you try to predict what the book will be about. In that prediction, make sure you include character names, setting, and main conflict. So that's previewing a text. Visualizing is something that happens during reading, happens while you're actually reading. Is there a movie playing in your mind while you are reading? There should be. Pay attention to description. Not everything requires a mind movie. So things that are describing the scenery, describing character reactions, that's all going to be requiring a mind movie. Sometimes the author will step back and provide general thoughts or reflections, or we'll start really like diving deep into the themes. You can't really picture that, but when they're describing something that's actually happening in the plot, that's when that mind movie should be on. If your mind movie stops, figure out why. Are you struggling with some vocabulary words you don't know, spacing out, completely lost? Each one of these is going to require a different reading strategy to fix it. And remember, it's always okay to talk to another student, to talk to a teacher, to talk to a parent. Sometimes even I get confused when I'm reading, because I'm like, I have no idea what just happened. And that's okay. That's a normal part of being a reader. If the vocab is like super, super high to the point that like you're just like, I don't even understand what this first page means, much less like where the rising action is, that's where you might want to think about, like, is this book maybe too high for me? Which that happens, again, to everybody. So just keep that in mind. Infer is also something you should be doing while you are reading. Inference is the noun form of that word. Infer is the verb. You should be drawing inferences while you are reading. Inferencing involves using the clues left behind by the author. Inferences are often necessary when trying to determine character traits and character motivations. It often sounds like this: oh, so if this and this is true, then that's true. You have to kind of pull everything together. One example is in Of Mice and Men. The author never comes out and tells you that these guys are wonderful friends, that they are like brothers or family to each other, but you can infer that pretty quickly within the first couple pages, the type of relationship that George and Lenny have. Concluding happens after you read, usually. Sometimes you can manage to have these aha moments during reading, but we kind of tend to talk about it, at least in my class, after we read. A good conclusion is going to pull together multiple inferences. Remember, a conclusion is based on your text evidence and your schema. A schema is what your brain contributes to the answer, and the text evidence is what you actually pull from that book. A good conclusion is going to have a healthy balance of both text evidence and schema. So we'll just talk about another example from Of Mice and Men, since that is one of our books in my class. The author never comes out and tells you that Lenny has some type of intellectual disability, but that's a conclusion that you can pull by, number one, using all the evidence that the author leaves for you in terms of Lenny's behaviors and the problems he's had in the past, plus your schema. You have to know a little bit about how people with an intellectual disability live their daily lives. So by combining those two things, what you already know and what the book is telling you, you can make a pretty awesome conclusion. Conclusions are, again, big inferences. It's not just like, oh, they're buddies. Like, this is something that it would take you pages and pages and pages to pull together. Summarizing is something that's going to happen after reading. When you're summarizing a narrative, include these three literary elements. Character, who is actually in that chapter that you just read, or story if you read a whole story. Setting, where and when does the story take place? And plot, what is happening in the story? What are the major conflicts? If you're summarizing an entire story, make sure to cover all parts of the plot pyramid. A good summary, again, will have character, setting, and major plot points. Alrighty, so that's it for this lesson. Again, we'll go ahead and back up really quickly so you can see all of the reading strategies in a row. These are the kinds of things that you can't just learn by sitting and watching in PowerPoint. You need to be actively engaged in these activities as you are reading, and it's also they don't have to be solo activities either. Any of these you can do while talking with friends, talking over the book with friends, reading in a reading circle, for example. Hope this helps you out. As always, reach out if I can be of any assistance.